We have 96 days left in 2024 as I am recording this here on the 26th of September of 2024. And I share that is because if you're like me, I set annual goals, right? Calendar year goals. And as we finish up this, this third quarter going into the fourth quarter is always a time to reflect. It's like, wow, I've got this last quarter to hit my goals that I want to hit. Where am I? And as I look at those, and you hopefully do the same thing. It's like we're like, okay, am I ahead? Am I behind? Am I right on track of wherever that would be for you? But what I want to kind of share today is just something a little bit different to be kind of thinking, because I think a lot of times is that we look at our goals, and if you set big goals where you're just like, you look at them, you're like going, man, there may be some, and if you're crushing all of yours, that is awesome. But if there's you that are there somewhat at times like me, where I'm like, man, this one, I just didn't, I just feel like I'm not gaining as much traction. I'm not going as fast. I'm not getting to where I need to be quick enough is to look at that, because I think one of the challenges, and I know that I have this, and now over 3 decades of, running and owning businesses, coaching people, helping them run their businesses, is that I think that times, and I know for me, and I was on a call yesterday with 2 of my mentors, and this came up in a call, and talking about, like, as business owners or entrepreneurs, is like, is that we're driven and we're looking, it's like, if we're not haven't arrived yet, if we haven't like crushed that goal and have hit that, we feel at times where it's like, I'm behind everybody else, because a lot of it comes from, from comparison, right? We compare other people, in our industry that are like, well, man, they look like they're killing it and they're doing these things. And so the challenge that we have is that we have to really be careful of that comparison, because we don't really know truly, unless they're close to us and we're having conversations with them, like, hey, this is what's going on my business. Because if we're seeing them on social media or whatever the case may be, a lot of the times is that maybe they're not doing as great as what they say that they're doing. But what I wanted to share with you today on this is just really is looking at this is understanding momentum, understanding to go back and look at the wins and kind of go, because you look at this and go, well, I didn't hit this number. I didn't get to this point. But it's to look back on, especially now over going on these last 9 months, is like, okay, where did I start? So on January 1st, what did it look like? Have I really, because a lot of times I'll feel like I didn't make any progress on getting any of this done. And then you go back and you review. This is why it's so important to go back. And one of the things one of my mentors talks about, Nick Peterson, talks about the rearview mirror. And you guys have heard me talk about that. It's like kind of looking back, right, on things. It's like going, it's like, okay, let me see, where was I? Where have I come to up until this point? And also it's a way for us to be able to look and go, hey, so what worked? What was I maybe doing then I was getting some traction, I was getting something, but I've abandoned that, right? And a lot of times in our world, in my ecosystem, as you guys know, is like, building those relationships. It's like, you know what? I haven't been sitting out, as many notes as I was earlier in the year. Why? Because I got busy and this or happened, or I didn't stay consistent with the calls. And so this is why it's a great time just to reflect back on that, not just this last quarter, which is great, but to reflect back all the way to the beginning of the year, and just kind of be looking at that, kind of go, all right, because you may see where, like, you know what, I did make more momentum. I may have not hit that number, but hey, I put this system and process into place. These things are happening, because what we want to do is, when we feel like that we're moving quick enough, or there's not enough momentum, a lot of the times is that a couple of things can happen. One, we get discouraged, where we're just like, this isn't happening fast enough. Maybe I should go and pivot and do something different. And a lot of times, and I struggle with this too as well, where it's just like going, it's like, this isn't happening quick enough. Maybe it's this thing, I need to do this. Versus a lot of the times, what I found in my own life and in folks that I work with, is like going, it's like, you know what? We just got to just stay consistent in this. And most of the time, when I look back at my goals and go, okay, the ones that I'm not hitting, or I'm behind on, is that there's probably a consistency piece in there that didn't happen. Like, I kind of like let up on something and I didn't find myself. I started strong, and there's where a lot of the times, especially, it's like that first quarter, we're on the new goal, we're on it. First quarter and second quarter, yeah, I'm still into it, but right there's where sometimes it's like that third quarter, fourth quarter is a great way, but sometimes we feel like we have so much ground to make up, especially if we're farther away from that goal than we want to be, and so. I want us just to be thinking and going back, and a couple things is going back and just looking at this year, um, and also looking at the things like if you're on pace to hit the goal, or you're ahead of pace on hitting the goal. Also look at that, right? Because success leaves clues. A lot of times, we look at like, hey, what didn't go right, and we're trying to diagnose that, which is okay. But at the same time, it's like, hey, why did this work? What was it about this thing, this one doing? What did I do differently in that to make that work? My assumption on my hypothesis on that would be is you're probably more consistent in whatever the activity that was related to hitting that goal, whether it may be even breaking it down. It's like, I enjoy doing that, more. As you guys know, I shoot, obviously, I record a ton of video. I enjoy doing video. Whether I'm good at it or not, well, that's a different story. But for me, doing video is not really a challenge. What's a challenge for me is writing. And even though I wrote a book, I don't favor writing. That's just not something. It's not natural. It doesn't come natural to me. It's a skill, right? That I've continued to work on and to get better at. But this is why a majority of like all of my stuff is video. I don't do a lot of written teaching, if you would, in it. And so it's understanding, that piece of it. So understanding your own dynamic of like, hey, I got that done because I enjoy, doing that more. Okay. So how can I take that and use that and maybe in another goal? So I want us to kind of like maybe over these next couple of days, as we wind up September and going into October into that fourth quarter, is kind of do some self-reflection and some diagnosing of like, all right, and not to criticize it and kind of judge it, kind of going and beat yourself up over it, where it's just like, hey, I'm not based upon this. I'm not going to hit the number, and it's okay. It's just like we accept that. But then what can we do to kind of go, all right, what can I do like to get, to 80% of that goal? And what would that need to look like? What would I maybe need to change and to do? And it's not to give up on it and to go, oh, I'm not going to hit it, so we're just going to be done with it. But no, it's like, look at that and then find those small wins along the way, because I'm for sure that there's going to be small wins, that there's going to be things that you've advanced on those goals. And if you have a goal where you're like, I just didn't do that at all, okay, then look at that, because it may be going back to your why wasn't strong enough on that goal. Whereas like you wrote it down as a goal, and sometimes we'll do that because we're like, hey, I this would be nice if this were to happen, but am I really passionate about it? Is my why strong enough that I want to see this accomplished by this period of time? And maybe it is, and maybe it isn't. But so go back and just re-examine that. And it doesn't take a lot of time to do it. You can sit down and for an hour and look back at your numbers, look back at your calendar, back at the things that have worked for you, and go, oh wow. And here's what this will do is it will remind you like, hey, I've gone farther. I've done more than I thought that I was able to do in this amount of time. And what that does is then again, it gives you, I believe it helps give you some, momentum, right? No one can create momentum for you. It's creating it for yourself. And it also then helps you kind of get into action. So it's like put together like, hey, here's my 90-day game plan. Hey, I can't do anything about the last 9 months. But if you're watching this today and there's 96 days, then I got control over this next 96 days. Can make that look different. What do I need to do in order to do that? And so just a couple of tools, just a couple of things I wanted you to be thinking about, that you can go back. One of those is like, is that rearview mirror? Go back and look at that. And what got you there? Maybe what didn't get you there? What got in the way? It's like, man, I got in the weeds. I was spending too much time doing this low activity, not focusing maybe on my database. If we're, you're talking about in our world of this, I wasn't making the connection. I wasn't making the calls, writing the notes, doing all of those things. Or I was, and then that's what really propelled. That's where I'm at, why I'm on that goal, because I did stay consistent with, with all of these things. And you hear me say it all the time, right? The number one thing, people ask me, what is the number one thing, right, for success? I don't care if that's in your business. I don't care if it's in your relationships, your health. It is consistency. Consistently doing the right things. Now, because we can be consistent in doing a lot of wrong things as well, but it's consistently doing those things that are moving the needle in a positive direction in any of those categories. So that's what I've got for you in today's training. I hope that helps. I just want that to be a reminder, just to kind of look at that. If you're not tracking numbers, start tracking those numbers that are key to you and in your business, because we can't change what we don't measure. We're just assuming then at that point in time. And not that everyone needs to be analytical, but we do need to have data points, because it shows us, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going to go. So, hey, have a great rest of your day. I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.